Hello, my name is Mrs. Tinch. Today we are going to be discussing the recovery model, which is chapter 10 in your textbook. So let's introduce this concept of the recovery model. Research has indicated that the striving for and achievement of recovery is realistic for many individuals. Recovery began in the addiction field, referring to a person recovering from a substance use disorder. The term has recently been adopted by mental health professionals who believe that recovery from mental health is also possible. So what is recovery? It's a process of change through which individuals improve their health and wellness, live a self-directed life, and strive to reach their full potential. That's why when we started talking about the concepts of mental health, we referred to Maslow's hierarchy of need. It's very similar to self-actualization. So what is recovery? Recovery is supported by four major dimensions: health, home, purpose, and community. Those are the supporting features of the recovery process. The basic concept of a recovery model is empowerment of the consumer, and that's very important to remember. We want our patients to take ownership of their recovery. We want them to be able to reach their full potential, and that looks different for each individual. So that's why assessments, diagnosing, nursing interventions, expected outcomes, reevaluating our plan is essential in this recovery that we want for our patients. So the guiding principles of recovery. Recovery emerges from hope. When I was teaching a couple of semesters ago in didactic, I had a student ask me, "You talk about hope, Mrs. Tench, but where do you get hope from with this population that is so difficult to treat?" And that was thought-provoking for me. When we're in the practicum setting, we see people who are struggling with their mental health or they're in crisis. When you're inpatient at St. Mary's or Richmond Community Hospital, you're in crisis. So it gives you really a false sense of the potential for recovery for many, many patients who have mental illnesses. So I think that may be part of it. But I believe in the recovery. That's where my hope comes from. And everybody's recovery looks different, and just being mindful of that and supporting them to reach their full potential. It might not be what I want for them, but it's what it is. Okay, so that's where the first principle of recoveries from emerges from hope. It it's person driven, just like said, unique. That's why plans of care have to be individualized. Occurs via many pathways. So true. That's why that interdisciplinary team approach is so important. Having occupational therapy therapists, music therapists, recreational therapists, chaplains, nurses, psychiatrists, all working together, social workers, case managers, working together to promote recovery. And it's holistic. I mean, we want our patients to develop a sense of wholeness. It's supported by peers and allies. I've learned that very early on in my career through a lot of group work, whether it be therapeutic groups, psychosocial groups, psychotherapist run groups. People who have that lived experience of a mental illness, that they are actually living in that type of with that, they live with mental illness. And I say that very often in the practicum setting. I don't know what it's like to have a mental illness, but I know people in this group, when we're inpatient, the group members do. And the research suggests that recovery is possible, and it is supported by being involved with people who have that shared experience. So we're going to talk about NAMI. And as we go through the course, NAMI is the National Alliance for Mental Illness, and I'm a member of NAMI. I'm an advocate for people joining that free services that are available to them. NAMI is national, but there's an organization, the Virginia NAMI, I think it's called NAMI Central Virginia, and they meet in Richmond, and they have peer-to-peer support groups. They have family-to-family support groups. They have information sessions for people who are interested, and they're free to the public. I hope you will take advantage, if you're interested in this type of nursing, to become involved with organizations that support the recovery. NAMI's one of their goals is to stamp out the stigma that accompanies mental illness. Very, very important. Our patients are socially isolated, they're marginalized, they're discriminated against, but yet our society tolerates that. And so that needs to change. And healthcare workers, nurses, we are change agents. We get involved and we identify issues in our society that need to be changed, and we support that change. Let's see. It's supported through relationship and social networking, just like I was talking about. There's a support group that I attend. It's called Fresh Hope. It's for people who are living with mental illness, and also for their family members, because it's very challenging to have a family member with a mental illness. And getting that support is very important, and it's a Christian-based organization. Recovery is culturally based and influenced. Your culture influences so many things about yourself, and recovery is one of them. And that's important to assess when you are assessing your patient. Is supported by addressing trauma. In this lesson, we're going to be talking about trauma and the impact it has on our mental health. Involves individuals, families, and community strengths and responsibilities. NAMI, for example, just like I was talking on, is based on respect. Very, very important to respect this population. So the title model is a model that I practiced under when I was first a psychiatric nurse. I didn't realize it was called the title model until I started teaching. This was our culture at the facility that I was working at the time, and is foundational to who I am as a nurse. I take the concepts of this title model, the principles, and relate it to my psychiatric setting nursing, my med-surg setting nursing. I just really think it's foundational to my practice, and we're going to talk about a few different types of models over the next few slides. So, what is the title model? A mental health nursing recovery model that may be used as the basis for interdisciplinary mental health care. And I think that's why we had a culture at Cumberland Hospital. We had that interdisciplinary approach. We had art therapists, music therapists, recreational therapists, psychotherapists, nurses, psychiatrists, pediatricians. We had a wonderful team, case managers, and we all worked together to promote recovery. And it was a person-centered approach to help people deal with the problems of human living. We would have treatment teams every 2 weeks. I was the case manager. At one time, I had many roles at Cumberland Hospital. I was a staff nurse. I was a diabetic educator. As a case manager, I was utilization and quality review advisor. So I took advantage of whatever I could learn about nursing and how we can help people who are struggling with their mental health and medical disorders. So when I was the case manager, we had that person-centered approach. We'd have a treatment team every 2 weeks. We would meet with the families. We would discuss their care. I would report to the payer and third-party sources on their recovery. So it was a very wonderful learning opportunity for me. And it was focused on the individual's personal story. And remember when I told you about my assessment, I said, tell me your whole story and don't leave anything out. So the title, the 10 commitments and practitioners' competencies are: value the voice, active listening. Oh, I love the story. Respect the language, understanding their personal experiences through stories, anecdotes, metaphors. Develop genuine curiosity. Even when I was in the PACU and I would do pre-op assessment phone calls with the patients in the surgery center, I would enjoy the story. A lot of my peers, like, you like to talk to your patients too much. It's like, well, that's the only way I'm developing a plan of care if they tell me what's going on. Become an apprentice. Develop plans of care that help individually with their specific problems. Use available toolkits. Help individuals identify with what efforts may be successful in solving their problems. Identified problems, of course, that's important. And craft the step beyond. Help the individual determine what kind of change you would like to represent a step towards recovery. The gift of time, man, that's so important. Being present with our patients, revealing personal wisdom. Help them develop self-confidence. Remember, I told you at the very beginning, I was a very confident practitioner. And people see that as arrogance in our society, but it's not. That's not it. My patients need to trust me. They need to have hope, and it comes from me. Them knowing I believe in them. Know that change is constant, and being transparent. All these things are part of this title model. Now, when we go to Bon Secours behavioral health units, they practice under the Wellness Recovery Action Plan, the WRAP model, and this I think it came out in 1997, and it's a great model, and it's very similar to the title model. Sometimes students, when they're performing their therapeutic group, will use this as a teaching opportunity to educate the patients on what the WRAP model is. So it's a step process, and it's empowerment that's very important. And steps that, are in the WRAP model toolkit, which you had in the other model, daily maintenance list, identifying your triggers, which is very important, identifying early warning signs when you're starting to have trouble with your mental health. Things are breaking down or getting worse. What's that look like to you? Crisis planning, and the WRAP model is individually and addresses unique needs of the person. And then there is the psychological recovery model. Once again, 4 components of this model is hope, responsibility, self and identity, and meaning and purpose. So sounding very similar. Different stages in this model. Moratorium, when you're in that dark space, when you maybe first got diagnosed and you're really struggling with the loss of your mental health. Stage 2 is awareness. Stage 3 is preparation. Stage 4 is rebuilding, and stage 5 is growth. So our interventions can be totally related to the models. That's why I use the recovery model. I use their story to develop their plan of care. The WRAP model, I've used that at behavioral health. It's a very well received model, and it definitely is something that promotes recovery. And in the psychological recovery model does the same. So we have assessment, we have interventions, and we have outcomes. So that gives you a little bit of information about the what recovery is, what nurses do to promote recovery. So we've really discussed a lot of the concepts of mental health nursing, and now we're going to be talking about different disorders. Then the next part of the lesson is about trauma. Thank you for watching.